Hey, brothers and sisters, part number 10 in our self-reliance videos. Um, Today we're just going to keep talking through the baby steps. Last time we talked about baby step 1, that's save $1,000 in your emergency fund to cover the small expenses. We do that so that we can do baby step number 2, which is pay off all debt except for your house. And we'll use a tool called the debt snowball. But first I want to talk about baby step 2. Again, there it is, pay off all debt except for your house using the debt snowball. Why? Lots of financial people tell you use leverage, where you're going to go into debt in order to be able to live a much better lifestyle, and you can leverage it appropriately. The problem is when we go into debt, typically it gets much harder to manage, and it's much easier to just live within your means. And when you look at people who are financially set, not one of them said they leverage debt as part of their financial pictures. And in fact, most people who are millionaires never carried debt in their life. And it is possible. Maddie and I have chosen to live, except for our house, in no debt, and it is possible to do that. Now, let's talk about the doctrine behind this, because there is doctrine behind this. In Doctrine and Covenants 104:78, the Lord said to Joseph, "And again, verily I say unto you concerning your debts, behold, it is my will that you shall pay all your debts." It's important that we always first pay our debts as a matter of integrity. The Lord expects us to do that, but then also not to go into debt. The problem with debt is it's super easy to get into and to build up more and more, thinking, well, I can afford the payment, when in reality you can't afford the item as a whole, as part of your budget. And pretty soon, as we start thinking, oh, well, I can afford that payment and that payment and that payment, pretty soon that builds up and you can't afford any of the payments. And so just avoid debt altogether. Proverbs 22:7 says, the borrower is servant to the lender. I want you to think about that for a second. The borrower is servant to the lender. Servant, or a slave, as in Old Testament times. Somebody who doesn't have freedom, doesn't have agency. Part of being self-reliant is, again, relying on yourself, having the agency and the ability to do what you need to. So I think that's very powerful. The borrower is servant to the lender. And we don't want to do that. We want to be able to be the one giving for good causes. Lastly, I will say this. One for the money comes from Marvin J. Ashton. Again, the church's self-reliance book. All of this talks about eliminating debt. And so we need to make sure that we are cutting debt out of our lives. Make a commitment to never go farther into debt. If you do that, there will be blessings that come your way for it. It's not going to be easy in the beginning, but if you'll choose to make the sacrifice to get out of debt and stay out of debt, it will help you be self-reliant throughout your life, and you'll be able to better build the kingdom of God. So how do we do that? And first of all, we talked about budgeting a couple times before, and the reason we be able to budget is to free up cash in order to throw out your baby steps. So if you're not on baby step number 1, you don't have $1,000, you stop everything, you budget and figure out how to find $1,000 to put there. Once you've done that, you don't stop budgeting, you continue budgeting until you take everything that you can and begin throwing in at debt. And the question then begins, how do I do that? And so there's this tool called the debt snowball. It is in that one for the money. The church has taught it for years. It's in the personal finances. Dave Ramsey teaches it. It's a great way to eliminate debt. So You need to list out your debts, smallest to largest. Smallest on top, largest at the bottom, and everything in between in order. Again, that's the smallest total debt. Okay, a lot of people ask, well, shouldn't I put largest interest rate down? And because mathematically that makes more sense. But the issue is, if this was a math problem, you wouldn't have gotten into debt ever to begin with, because the math doesn't support debt; it supports saving money. And so we're not trying to fix a math problem here. We're trying to fix a behavior problem. I've said this before. Usually we think it's, I've got money problems, when in reality it's me problems. It's not that I don't have enough money, it's that I'm not in control of my money. And so the debt snowball is to help fix your behaviors. So you list out your debts, smallest to largest, and you pay minimums on everything that you possibly can, except for that smallest debt. And you take everything that you've got in your budget, extra money, and you attack that smallest debt until it goes away. The reason we do that is it's a quick win, and it gets you psychologically psyched up to be able to do this long term. So you pay off that first debt, and then you don't just put the money back into your budget. You take the money you were spending on that first debt and all the extra money, and you start attacking the second debt, and you go like crazy on it. As much as you can, you put all your extra money to that until you pay off your second debt. Again, this is kind of how it works mathematically. If you had $100 here, and you could only find $100 a month, so your smallest debt was $100, then you take, and then in your budget you could only find an extra $100, so you put all that money towards this and you pay it off. Then you take excuse me, let me back up. $100 here, let's say you were making a payment of $10 a month. So you take your $100 that you paid off here and your $10 that you would pay each month and start attacking your next one. And so if your next one was $130, right, you would take 110 and apply it to that, and there'd only be $20 left. And so you can see it kind of like a snowball. As you're rolling a snowball, the longer you roll it, the bigger you get, the more money, in a philosophical sense, the more money you have to put towards it. And so you pay off all your debts until you get down to your largest debt. A lot of people's largest debt is student loans, and they're big, they're massive, and so you want to be able to have a huge snowball to attack those at the bottom. And so you just start paying them off one by one, and pretty soon you'll get there. Now, there's another principle that we need to talk about. Dave Ramsey explains it as gazelle intense, and he's got a funny story that goes along with it that really illustrates this point. He was reading in Proverbs again, and it said to run from debt like a gazelle from a lion. It uses an old term for a gazelle, but the point is you're running from that debt. And he said, I didn't quite sink my teeth into it until I watched on the Discovery Channel a gazelle being chased by a lion, and the lion is faster than a gazelle, like as far as if you measure them side by side. However, the gazelle is running for its life, and it's doing everything else. It's kind of like run away, right? And that's the same feeling that you have to get about your debt. I gotta run away. Have that intensity in your life, because if you can have that intensity around debt, you'll begin to make progress. If you got a budget and you can only find $100 extra a month, and you're trying to pay off debt with $100 extra a month, it's never going to happen. You need to freak out about it and say, I am going to get out of debt, and take a second job if you have to. Go drive pizzas. You can make $1,600 a month delivering pizzas, for crying out loud. So you could find extra money to throw at that debt. The thought is, you're making a budget, and it's not an extravagant budget. In fact, if you get serious about it, you're eating rice and beans. You're eating as cheaply as you possibly can, so that you can squeeze every dollar out of your budget to start paying off your debt. And you just get intense. Pick up a second or third job. Do whatever you got to do. Get that debt paid off. Because when you have no debt, it's extremely freeing. That feeling of, I gotta run away. Once you get away, there's a lot of peace there. And there's blessings to having debt paid off, blessings of peace in your life, being able to overcome that challenge and really move on to the more fun parts of financial mastery. But if you don't have that debt paid off, then you're always going to struggle with that and never really get ahead financially. And you'll look back over many years and wonder what happened. The quickest way to success is to get out of debt. And so you can do it. You can work extra. You can do what you need to do for a short period of time, so that in the long term you can have the blessings you need, and ultimately, again, be at peace, build the kingdom of God, and give like crazy. That's the goal here. And so, again, you can read a lot more about getting out of debt, but I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, let's talk. I'm happy to help. We've gone through this in our life, and know that you can do it too. And so that's baby step number 2. Next time we'll talk about baby step number 3. Thanks, everyone. Love y'all.